Michigan is one of 7 swing states that could decide the U.S. presidential election, which is why Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have been spending a lot of time there lately.
I just feel a kindred spirit whenever I come to Detroit.
Hello to Michigan. We win Michigan, we win the whole ball game.
Detroit was once known as the automobile capital of the world, but auto manufacturing has been declining in Michigan for decades, spurred by automation and companies moving abroad. That has meant a huge loss of well-paying jobs. And that's at least part of the story of how Michigan became an election battleground. Professor Michael Traugott of the University of Michigan unpacks this key swing state.
I would say around 1980 was the beginning of the swinging part of the state.
In the 1970s and 1980s, Michigan voted exclusively for the Republican presidential candidate. But in 1992, the state swung to the Democratic candidate, and it voted that way by a margin of 5 to 10 percentage points until 2016. That's when Trump won against Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton by fewer than 11,000 votes.
Thank you very much, everybody.
I would attribute that to strategic errors made by the Clinton campaign, not focusing enough, especially at the end of the campaign, on the state of Michigan. By that I mean not coming to visit to stimulate turnout among African Americans in Detroit, for example.
But President Joe Biden won back the state for Democrats in 2020 by nearly 3 percentage points. Both Trump and Harris are working hard to win over white working-class voters and their labor unions. Today, the automotive industry employs 20% of Michigan workers.
The UAW has strongly endorsed first Joe Biden because he went on the picket line with them, and then Kamala Harris.
But she failed to get union backing from 2 key groups that Biden had secured in 2020, and a recent survey shows Trump has made significant gains with union voters. Black voters are also a large part of Michigan's electorate at 13%. They tend to vote Democratic, though recent polls show their support may be waning. Another big X factor in Michigan's election is whether its sizable Arab American population, the largest in the U.S., will stick with Democrats. Many have protested the Biden administration's handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict.
We don't have very good survey data about Arab Americans in the United States, but we have a small number of highly organized groups.
One such group urged their Democratic supporters not to vote for Biden in the primary as a form of protest.
Over 100,000 votes in the Democratic primary were cast for uncommitted, no particular candidate. And those groups now, with about 3 weeks to go, as you and I are chatting, have not endorsed Kamala Harris. Some of them have told their members not to vote for Donald Trump, but others haven't.
The youth vote could also be critical. In the 2022 midterm elections, Michigan boasted the highest turnout of young voters in the country. Green Party candidate Jill Stein is widely blamed for Clinton's loss in 2016, since her vote share was larger than Trump's margin of victory in Michigan and other key states. She's running again this year.
Some of the groups which are withholding support for Harris, have suggested, instead of voting for Donald Trump, which they oppose, that their members vote for Jill Stein. And to the extent that the election is close and one or more third-party candidates could get a couple of percentage points, that could determine the outcome of the election.
Like every other swing state, the economy, particularly inflation, is the biggest concern, but other issues are also getting attention. Traugott says abortion could be a big mobilizing issue for women. Michigan was one of the first states to legalize abortion after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and women tend to vote at higher rates than men.
And I think that the gender gap in the 2024 campaign is going to increase. We have seen recently some data in Michigan that suggests that when Joe Biden was still a candidate, there was a net advantage for him of about 16 percentage points, the difference in support among women and men. And in the most recent data, there's a 31 percentage point difference between the support for Kamala Harris among women as opposed to men.
Another important issue in Michigan is the debate over electric vehicles.
Trump campaign has been pretty effective in attacking the Democrats and Kamala Harris as a member of the Biden administration about the push for electric vehicles, the threat from China, potentially raised by imports of electric vehicles because the U.S. auto industry centered in the state of Michigan is behind.
Attention auto workers. Kamala Harris wants to end all gas-powered cars. Crazy, but true.
Harris says that's not true.
I will never tell you what kind of car you have to drive.
But she does see electric vehicles as a way to re-energize Michigan's shrinking car industry. Harris and Trump are currently neck and neck in the polls. Ultimately, Traugott says, the outcome in Michigan will come down to who can get their supporters to actually cast a ballot.
In a very tight race like this, which is also true nationally, mobilization will be the key issue.